Hi, I'm Grandma Rachel of Grandma's Attic, and this is episode 3 of Grandma's Victory Garden. And this booklet, we're talking about corn. So, speaking of corn, I have those corny jokes that my son likes to tell. We call them the Kyle Files. Did you hear about the 2 guys who stole a calendar? They each got 6 months. What kind of bagel can fly? A plain bagel. And how many ears did Captain Kirk have? Well, he had 3. He had a left ear, a right ear, and a final front ear. I told you they were bad. So here's my joke. The minister of a city church enjoyed a drink now and then, but his passion was peach brandy. One of the congregants, a man named Joe, would make him a bottle of it every Christmas. It was a little secret between the 2 of them. One year, when the minister went to visit his friend, hoping for his usual Christmas present, he was not disappointed, but his friend told him that this year he couldn't keep it a secret. He'd have to thank him for the peach brandy from the pulpit the next Sunday. In his haste and anticipation to get the bottle, the minister hurriedly agreed to do that. So the next Sunday, the minister suddenly remembered that he had to make a public announcement that he was being supplied alcohol by a member of the church. That morning, Joe was sitting right up in the front row of the church with a grin on his face, waiting to see how embarrassed that minister was going to get. The minister climbed up into the pulpit and said, "Before we begin, I have an announcement. I would very much like to thank my friend Joe for his kind gift of peaches and for the spirit in which they were given." That's silly. I like silly jokes. Okay, so block 3 is called variable star number 3. And if you're in the Americana colorway, this is what your quilt block is going to look like. How about the 1930s yellow and blue colorway? Uh-oh, check it out. Can you see what happened? Right here. See how that's in backwards? I'm telling you, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to take it off and turn it around, and then it can look like the other blocks. And you know what? Sometimes you don't see those mistakes until after you've gotten it back from the quilter. And then you just have to say things like, all right, nobody's perfect. Here's the purple and teal colorway in batiks. Isn't that pretty too? And finally, here is the blue and purple colorway. Now, if you've come in and picked up your block already, you know that the blue was on back order, and it took quite a while for them to get the blue back. And we couldn't get it to you any faster than the company could get it to us. And even though this is the fabric line that is actually made in America, and it has the name American Made, they were so backed up from people who'd been buying up product to make masks that it was hard to get the gray goods. Gray goods are the base fabric. They're not gray. It's Greige, but gray goods. And they're the background fabric that the colors are printed on. And because so many people were needing fabric at that time, it took a while for them to get it and a while for us to get it. But nevertheless, we have it now, and so it is in stock. In our booklet about corn, we have some really nice pictures. There's a picture of the Corn Palace. There's a soldier with a lady who is part of the tailoring team that is helping repair his uniform. There's that beautiful picture of corn with Aunt Mabel's, or Mother Mabel, I should say, Mother Mabel's recipes. There is the timeline that starts out 1940 to 41. We have the poster. It's about corn, and then there's a little article on corn history. But I'm going to read you the story this time, and it's called An Unexpected Uproar in Mr. Washington's Cornfield. You know, we wrote this as a series of letters that Dora is writing to her husband who is overseas with the war. Dear John, I've shoved the cat off the bed for like the 5th time. Mrs. Washington calls him Jigs, but I've decided that his actual name is Pest. I still have no idea why my room and my pillows are more enticing than those in any other room, although I quite understand why he avoids Martha's room. Johnny likes to chase him down the hall, but the cat is back and settled at the foot of the bed. I've crammed all the pillows behind me as I write you. The information you were able to share with me about your ship was truly interesting. I did not realize there were so many men aboard. As a matter of fact, 3,000 is more men than live in the entire town of Orchard Falls. I can see why you keep trying to find a quiet place on ship to read my letters. I try not to get too involved in listening to the war news each evening. It's too scary. I pray daily that you are safe. Mrs. Washington fixed a special treat for the children the other night, chocolate popcorn. I'd never heard of it before, but it was so delicious I asked her for the recipe. You see, I'm keeping a separate journal filled with recipes I've discovered so that when we are able to set up housekeeping, I will have lots of ideas with which to tempt you. Mrs. Washington popped corn fresh from the garden, then made a candy glaze by cooking milk, sugar, and glazed chocolate together, grated chocolate, not glazed, until it was just right. She drizzled the milks right onto the popcorn and stirred it up until the corn was coated. So good. I was just as eager as the children when Mrs. Washington called them into the kitchen after supper and homework was done. We had a bit of an uproar at the farm this past Saturday. Mr. Washington likes to sit out on the porch in the afternoons and survey his large garden and fields. He spends most of his day outside in good weather and only comes in for his dinner and radio programs. The dog Rusty is always with him unless Johnny is around. Those two are inseparable after Johnny gets home from school. They play catch and run up and down the garden rows with Mr. Washington calling for them both to watch out and not trample the produce. Sometimes Mr. Washington will throw a baseball from the porch for Johnny to catch, but if he misses, Rusty will take off with it and a chase will ensue. Last week, Mr. Washington decided that he would make a maze in the corn patch. It wasn't a very difficult one, just something he thought would be fun for the children. And yet the children weren't the only ones who were having fun with it. Martha and Ruth tried to convince Jeannie to join them, but she didn't want to get dirty. I thought it looked like great fun, so I joined them and then also went again with the children, Jane and Susan, who were intrigued, but slightly scared about not being able to find their way out. When Johnny decided to walk the maze, Rusty was right at his heels. Several of us were in the lower part of the garden having completed our walkthrough when Johnny and Rusty began their own little journey. None of us were particularly concerned about this because, truth be told, you could probably find your way out just by talking to someone who was in the field. So when Johnny screamed, it naturally scared his mother half to death. At the same time, we heard a loud crashing sound. Martha, Ruth, and I all went running to see what was happening. Turned out it was Daisy, Mr. Washington's cow. She had decided to chew her way through a portion of the maze. Johnny had been so intent on following Rusty he hadn't been paying attention. He rounded a bend in the maze and came face to face with what he thought was a monster. Only it was just Daisy who had gotten loose and was eating her way through the corn. When Johnny screamed, it scared Rusty, who started barking loudly at Daisy, who got so flustered that she turned and ran, trampling through the corn maze in her haste to get free. By the time Mr. Washington, who you remember is slightly crippled, could get to Daisy, Ruth had managed to lure her out of the maze with a cob of corn. Martha ran to Johnny, hugging him tightly as he sobbed out his fright. Mr. Washington told Rusty to stop barking, which he did once he realized that Johnny was safe. Mrs. Washington came out to see what the commotion was all about, but by that time the scare was over and everyone was ready to sit at the picnic table and enjoy the calm of a lovely afternoon. I must say that there never seems to be a dull moment at this boarding house, and I shall miss it very much once my stay is over. And yet, knowing that I will leave because I'm going to be with you makes it bittersweet. As always, I love you. I miss you, I pray for you, and I cannot wait to be in your arms again. Your loving wife, Dora. So that's our story. And I want to tell you why I was a little late getting this thing done. And that's because, as you may have known, we have a new website, grandmazaddyquilting.com, just the same as it's always been. But we have a new provider because the old provider, who I was with for 23 years, has decided to retire. It's been a steep learning curve for me. I welcome all your comments and suggestions and hope that you won't be shy about telling me what you think would help with this new website. On top of that, I just want to say thank you for your support. Know that I miss you very, very much, and hope to see you in person when you can get in. If you're part of that vulnerable population, same as me, then you know that you have to stay safe through this. But it looks like we'll be able to get together sometime soon, and then we'll have a really good time together. In the meantime, have fun shopping the web, and we'll see you next time. You know, there are several ways that you can receive goods from us. You can walk into our brick and mortar store. We have to be at 50% capacity right now, but fortunately, we have a really big store, so that's not really a problem. We are asking people to wear masks and to try to stay socially distant because, as you know, we want to make sure that everybody stays safe and is healthy at the end of this. Secondly, if you don't want to come into the brick and mortar store, we do offer curbside service where you call us and we'll come right out to your car and put whatever you've ordered right smack in your car, and you don't ever have to even come in here. The third way that you can order from us is a telephone call. Just call us. We can mail it to you. Amber, our store manager, is really good about mailing things out to people, and she's also really good with the phone ordering. And finally, you can shop online at our web store, www.grandmazaddyquilting.com. Hi, I'm Grandma Rachel with Grandma's. This is hysterical. You'd think it would be easy. It's not easy. It's a lot easier when you're just in front of a group of people and you're talking.